so much for coming tonight to the second annual Friedman Legacy of Friedman Day. Today you're going to be joining 50 other groups in 46 other states celebrating the life and vision of Milton Friedman on what would have been his 96th birthday. Dude, I'm sorry if I missed people. I'm going off the list that we had. I also want to say a special thanks and recognize one of Dr. Milton Friedman's closest friends and one of my personal mentors, Gordon and Enlow, who was the Milton Rose Friedman's first choice to be the president and CEO of their foundation. So, Gordon, thank you very much for all you've done for the city and for this issue. So. All right, so last year we had a great time at this event in Conrad. We liked the Conrad for this event. It's a fun event. But we learned one thing when we heard feedback. We heard that people want to hear more about Milton Friedman than just the education vision. We need to talk more about what Milton Friedman the man was and Milton Friedman the other issues that he supported. So what we wanted to do this year, as you can tell from the political hats and the buttons and the bumper stickers, we wanted to have an old-style political rally. So we're titling our political rally Milton in 2008. Right? We wanted to say to ourselves, what would happen if Milton Friedman was a candidate for governor? What would he be? What would his policies be? And what kind of man would he be? So we want to give you Milton Friedman, the candidate, and Milton Friedman's policies, and give you a little bit of information about that. Who was Milton Friedman? Well, Milton Friedman is the son of immigrants from a working class family. He was born in New York on July 31st, 1912, to a working class family of Jewish immigrants from a part of Hungary that is now a part of the Ukraine. Shortly after he was born, his parents moved to Rahway, New Jersey, and his parents were dry goods merchants. So this is clearly a working class man. Milton Friedman worked really hard to get ahead in school. By the way, he was a really good student. He graduated from high school before his 16th birthday and was given a scholarship to Rutgers, where he graduated in 1932 with a Bachelor of Arts. He then went on to economics at the University of Chicago and Columbia University, where he got his PhD. The other thing is Milton is a lifelong teacher who dedicated his life to public service. You know, in addition to all his work with the Roosevelt administration and the National Bureau of Economic Research, by the way, quick aside, the one thing Milton Friedman wanted to overturn all his life was the one thing he helped get passed as part of the Roosevelt administration, which is the one thing we all don't like, which is payroll deduction. He realized the value of getting rid of that, and that was part of the administration that he was part of. But at his heart, he was a teacher. For over 30 years, he taught economics at the University of Chicago, where he became famous and world famous for his rejection of Keynesian economics. He was one of only a handful of people who rejected the nearly universal consensus at the time in favor of government management of the economy in the mid-20th century. One of the handful of people. And it was his revolutionary thinking and work in economic and monetary policy and theory that earned him the Nobel Prize in 1976. He's widely regarded as the leader of the Chicago School of Monetary Economics, which stresses the importance of the quantity of money as an instrument of government policy. Where's the gentleman I'm talking to? There's no next about that. Now, the other thing, Milton Friedman the man. He was a prolific writer whose thinking influenced presidents and has influenced the lives of people all around the world. Over the course of his career, Milton Friedman wrote hundreds of scholarly articles, dozens of books, and they were often written with his wife and intellectual partner, Rose Friedman. These books include Money Mischief, The Monetary History of the United States, The Tyranny of the Status Quo, Capitalism and Freedom, and his most important book, Free to Choose. Now, that book was translated in over 50 languages and became a PBS TV series that was known the world over. He was the winner of the 1988 Presidential Medal of Freedom and the National Medal of Science winner in 1988. He was on the President's Commission for the All-Volunteer Army. In fact, he is credited with creating the All-Volunteer Army. Milton Friedman was one of the White House Fellows and a member of Ronald Reagan's Economic Policy Advisory Board and advisor to Margaret Thatcher and many other world leaders. Milton Friedman stands up for special interest, stands against special interest. This is who your candidate would be. Nobel laureate economist Gary Becker said, "During the last half-century, I've watched Milton and Rose successfully stand their ground against the dedicated and often vicious opposition to their challenges to many, many issues, including Keynesianism, big government, Chilean reforms, the American Medical Association, unions, public schools, drug prohibition, and many other issues." Milton Friedman stands up to special interests. Milton Friedman is a family man. Milton Friedman met his wife, Rose Director Friedman, in 1932. They were married for 68 years and together for 74 years, longer than the average lifespan of a man. They have 2 children, David Friedman, who is a professor at Santa Clara University, and Janet Friedman, who is a lawyer and a world-class bridge player. Hey, trust me, she's good. In fact, you would not believe the rules that go into bridge, world-class bridge. They can't even look at each other anymore. Just to do it. That is your candidate. That is the bio of your candidate. Imagine the ads you'd run off of that. Now, what kind of man was this? What kind of policies did he advocate? Well, here's what Milton Friedman said in his own words. Don't let me talk to him about him. Let him give you his own words. How about health care? The high cost and inequitable character of our medical care system, he said, are the direct result of a steady movement towards reliance on third-party payments. A cure requires reversing course, reprivatizing medical care by eliminating third-party payments, and restoring the role of insurance to providing protection against major medical catastrophes. How about government regulation and special interests? Quote, we rail against special interests except when that special interest happens to be our own. Each of us knows what's good for him is good for the country, so our special interest is somehow different, he would say. The end result of that, though, is a maze of restraints and restrictions that make almost all of us worse off than we would be if all of those restraints were eliminated. We lose far more, he said, from measures that serve other special interests than we gain from measures that serve our special interests. Think about that. What about taxes and government spending? Quote, I am completely opposed to any retreat on the subject of taxes. Raising taxes will not reduce the deficit, it will only increase government spending. How about Social Security? We should, he said, repeal immediately the payroll tax, as you think. Give every worker who's already earned coverage under Social Security a claim to those benefits that his current earnings entitle him to, and then let them provide for their own retirement in a way they see fit. And finally, what about elementary and secondary education? The issue that the Friedman Foundation is all about, and the one issue that Milton said has got to be solved before we go any further as an economy. He said the following: one way to achieve a major improvement, to bring learning back into the classroom, especially for the currently most disadvantaged students, is to give all parents greater control over their child's education, similar to that which those of us in the upper income classes already have. Social reformers and educational reformers in particular, he said, often self-righteously take for granted that parents, especially those who are poor, and especially those who have little education themselves, have little interest in their child's education and no competence to choose for them. This is a gratuitous insult, Milton Friedman said. Such parents have frequently had limited opportunity to choose. However, U.S. history has amply demonstrated that given the opportunity, they have often been very willing to sacrifice greatly and a great deal for their child's welfare. One simple and effective way to assure parents a better education is to give them a freedom to choose, while still retaining our source of financing, he said, is a voucher plan. The voucher plan embodies exactly the same principles as the GI Bills that provide for educational benefits to military veterans. The veteran, or in this case the parent, gets a voucher good for only the educational expenses they spend on only approved schools, and they're free to choose to go wherever. That's a little bit about the philosophy of Milton Friedman and this man. He's had an overarching moral philosophy, though, that I want to end with before I pass it over to Ben Hunter. Here's what he said, which I think is really important for us to remember as we go forward. Wherever we find in any large element of individual freedom some measure of progress in the material comforts at the disposal of ordinary citizens and widespread hope of further progress in the future, there we also find that economic activity is organized mainly through the free market. Wherever the state undertakes to control in detail the economic activity of its citizens, there ordinary citizens are in political fetters. They have a low standard of living and little power to control their own destiny. The goal of the Milton Friedman Foundation and the Friedman Foundation for Educational Choice is to give parents, particularly poor parents, total control over the destiny of their children. And that's what we're here for today, to celebrate Milton Friedman and his vision. Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to pass it over to Ben Hunter, who's going to introduce the mayor.